Today, we've got some really clear winners in the browser space, but we've also got some big losers. And I think the browser space and how AI functionality, AI capability, what's meshing in with the browser, things are starting to take shape. And I think we have a much better sense of what this is going to look like, how the different players are shaping up. So today, we're going to be looking at winners, we're going to be looking at losers, call it, and start to see how this is more coming together, right? So, first, I want to start with a very clear winner, especially over the past couple weeks as things have really started to take shape. And that I have to say is Chrome. I mean, just so obviously dominant here. I mean, they are distributed like nobody's business, right? I mean, Chrome is used by more people, and it's almost like they don't even realize that that's the browser that they're using. It's just like where the internet comes from, kind of thing. And the longer that this goes on, as long as like we've gotten from 2023 when AI first came out in people's consciousness, ChatGPT, like the further we get from that date and Chrome is still the dominant player here, I think it just kind of continues to perpetuate. And it's almost like they're sitting on top of the mountain here, and people might be trying to come after to some degree, but it's just not working. And you can just see that moat, continuing to hold and fend people off. So got the Chrome in really clear here. I mean, they're just winning left, right, and center. Okay, in the loser camp, you got to put Dia, right? Okay, so we can start by just kind of caveating this, and that's Dia's logo. Whoop, oh, right over there. Dia's logo over there. So you got to put them in the loser camp, right? So they raised money, I think, around $500 million plus valuation. They did sell the company successfully for more than that, a little over $600 million. So you could call it a success. You could call it a win, certainly for very early investors, team founders, et cetera. There are clearly some wins there. I don't want to, minimize that. And some really cool aspects of their product that I might say, but you gotta put them in the loser camp here. I mean, they are fading into obscurity. I mean, we're talking like, let's go way back here. We're talking about like a company and a product like Trello, for example, used to be big. People used to talk about it. No one does anymore. Has just kind of transitioned slowly into this kind of like loser column there. You've also got ones like, let's say, Medium. People used to talk about that with blogs and what. Dia, I think, feels like the Medium of 2025. Awesome design, some cool aspects of kind of the experience in there. Had a lot of heat on Twitter in the case of Medium. Now is just like some sort of afterthought. Who even talks about it? Who really cares? And I'm worried that's exactly where Dia's heading in, right? So just ended up being pretty marginal for the last investors, right? They invested around $500 million. They make, they sell the company for 600. Everyone's looking for that 3 to X kind of thing. I mean, that stage and just, well, it's a little bit of a wet blanket there. And they did have a lot of heat. There was a lot of discussion around them, and there was almost this like spike of interest again around the acquisition, good for them and all that sort of stuff. But like since, just completely faded out. And Atlassian, at least we'll be able to understand like where is this going? How does this kind of fit in? I want to see this play out, but I think right now you got to kind of say, like, they wanted to win this war, right? They wanted to take out Chrome. They wanted to kind of be on par with a Safari, at least like 10% of the market. Like, let's go, let's make something here. And they thought AI was kind of angle for it. Totally didn't work out in that way. Now it kind of drifts off into some sort of SMB enterprise world where maybe you need to use it. Maybe your boss tells you to. Maybe the whole thing gets kind of reshaped. Maybe kind of just some sort of crazy acquihire and an awesome, New York company that gets that done. Okay, let's see how all that plays out. But pretty clearly, I think right now, I mean, they're sitting in loser territory. But you got to hand it to somebody else who just seems to be hanging out in the winner's circle. And that's Safari, right? And in some sense, by not kind of making big moves, and a lot of people had said, hey, like, Apple should go out and buy Dia, and, and the brand company makes Dia. Okay, I you could see some sort of arguments for that, but I just thought that was really kind of a stretch here. I think what Apple's really on the situation is like AI is not necessarily going to be transformative in the browser. It's going to be tack-ons. It's going to be things that otherwise sit on the device anyway. And okay, like let's watch and like let's see how this space actually develops before we kind of go throwing down on all sorts of stuff. And it almost most sounds like Safari is kind of winning by default here. Like it's like, okay, we have our install base. It's about 10% of users browse the internet through it. I use Chrome. I also use Safari to some extent. Well, I try to mix it up. I also use Perplexity Comet. We'll talk about them in just a second. So, I think they're in the mix with it. And I think just by virtue of not having a DIA or anything kind of really changing here as substantially in the market, they put themselves definitely into the win column, and they'll stay there until kind of can dethrone that. um in the loser column, Perplexity. I mean, you gotta put Comet in there. It has not had that kind of breakthrough for it, and I can say this as a daily user, right? So I do use Perplexity Comet. I also do use Chrome. I use Safari. Try to use them for different tasks and have some pre-configurations on that's helpful for me. I don't know that I'm really the like typical user for this, but as someone who has consistently used Perplexity, it's okay. It has not come anywhere close to the level where I would recommend it, let's say, to a friend, which I think is ultimately pretty disappointing, just given the potential for that sort of product. I also, I think, just haven't really seen much improvement at all for kind of normal users. There might be more things that really come in for power users, but beyond maybe what I'm using it for. Uh, and I just think that, they have launched this and have it, on market for several months. The pace at which Perplexity should be developing and really pushing forward with meaningful improvements for normal users, I think that's problematic. So, point out two things that I think are difficult for me. I feel like I use Comet and what I'm missing for it. So the first one is when you're searching in their kind of Omni box, or entering stuff in, I'd like to see a little bit more intelligence on like when to actually just drive towards, let's say, a Google search, or some sort of more search interface as opposed to answering my question in it. I feel like there's some jankiness there where it could just be a much smoother experience anticipating what the user is getting at. I think there have been many cases where I put in something and I don't really want an explanation. The restaurants in the area where I happen to be, like, I want just like give me the list, give me something to kind of work with in a way that's a little bit more digestible. I just feel like I've had too many of those sorts of interactions to really feel like, oh, this is anticipating my needs in a way where it really, technically is totally capable and should be starting to kind of show that sort of polish at this point. I also, and second part here, and I'm just going to come out and say it, like the AI in Comet feels lazy. Like, like this person is not, if it was a person behind the scenes actually doing this work, they are lazy. They are taking a long lunch break. There's probably a smoke break. I mean, they're their girlfriend. Like they are not punching in and like working hard here. And that's pretty disappointing because it could be. A lot of the capability is there. I find this when I'm like using it to make some research on like from a shopping perspective. I'm like, okay, I'm looking for this type of product. Can you show me, these four options? Me when they're going to arrive, where are the different places I can actually get it, give me the price, etc. And like just too often it'll go and it'll do it for like two of the products, two of the five products, and then come back to me and like ask if I want more detail. Or otherwise I was like, no, no, like I want it for all five. So just give it to me for all five. It doesn't cost you that much. There's no human actually doing the work there. That's why I want to use this AI. I want unreasonably good stuff. I want more than what a human would be able to do. Otherwise, like I'm just not really that interested. So I think there's just a lot of those sorts of mini interactions there that just throw it in the loser camp. A lot of potential here. Could have made something with it. it's just not getting there, not getting there fast enough. Too bad to see. We'll see if they can kind of turn it around there. In the winter camp, I mean, now this was kind of a really interesting play. So Anthropic came out, and of course they make Claude, and they were basically said, "Hey, we're just going to partner with Google Chrome. We're going to do some extension stuff here. We're going to put Claude. We like Claude. We like Claude. We're going to put him into Chrome. You're already in Chrome. We're going to take Claude. We're going to put him in there, and it's a pretty interesting experience with it. I think it's the right direction as well. I mean, like recognize the crazy distribution that Google's has with it, and Anthropic is basically saying, okay, we're not going to play here. We're going to just be here with our product when we need to be with it, and we're going to focus elsewhere. And I think they've generally done a good job, with that on driving kind of their core API product and building out kind of their Claude desktop app, and going in that direction seems pretty smart to me here. To just kind of more explicitly do that, and they never came out and said that they were like going to be doing something else, and that puts us into the other here for losers. We got to put OpenAI here. I mean, they basically just punted on the whole thing. Remember, they were like gonna come out with a browser, and like at this point, it's like TikTok. I mean, not really TikTok, but like it's just been a long time here. I feel like we've all kind of moved off it. I mean, are the browser wars even ongoing? It feels like some huge momentum would have to come back here to like get us to really think, okay, somehow OpenAI is coming over the top. And it almost like when their dev day recently, this was at the beginning of October, they came out with their kind of like apps within ChatGPT, and it almost felt like there was an element here of like the white flag around the browser. It's like, help me to see the overall vision. It's like you want everybody to have ChatGPT open, and like there's 800 million of us that are like in there at least once a week at various degrees of activity. Okay, like you've got the audience, and now you're coming out with like the apps within ChatGPT. So like I can check, apartments and homes on Zillow, or like I can order a pizza from inside ChatGPT. We'll see. I can get some on Etsy. Like we'll see how that all is actually used. Maybe we'll dive into that in another video. But the reality is just it's not a browser. So where are you placing that? Are you still going to come out with like a unique browser experience, and how is that going to kind of play into ChatGPT? It's starting to get a little bit more lead here, and just the fact that it's been a punt, it's been a while from a company that we know is moving very quickly here. Just in general with releasing other products and otherwise, it's probably just seeding the ground to some degree, but it's a little bit loser mentality to kind of have said, "Hey, I'm gonna go do this." It hasn't happened. Maybe it's super delayed. Maybe they'll gin everybody up for some excitement coming down the line. But like for now, it's kind of just okay. We'll sit with it. Pretty clear though that to me they sit in the loser category here. So a lot is changing. I mean, I think as we kind of look at some of this stuff, it'll move, it'll shift. Want to kind of see, especially how Perplexity and Comet continues to move. Maybe they're really taking in a lot of different feedback here, and there's a bigger push that's coming. But you tend to see things that are like incremental and pushed forward with it. And maybe we'll get some interesting stuff on device from Safari and Apple, and ways that we can use that. That'll be cool to see if we get some of that coming together. So anyway, great to see everyone, and we'll catch you guys on the next video.